The EU is afraid of memes. I remember this happened before when they tried to ban memes with Article 11, but they've decided, new strategy, we'll just declare them terrorism. So,
Okay.
so here's the story. Memes and humor are central weapons of the far right, claims the EU. So this is an article Josh has written that goes into more depth than we're going to here with some context. But one of those things being that they really struggle at first to define what the far right is, and then later define it as everyone. And in here he mentions some of the context being that in the UK, for example, in January, it emerged that the number of prevent referrals to a government counter-terrorism initiative rose by 90%. And those being referred were all pensioners. So
All those far-right pensioners sharing memes on the internet.
Josh did an interview with a guy who is involved in this sort of thing, and he was just like, yeah, they're basically just telling us you need to go and find some more far-right people because it's politically correct, and therefore it's just, pensioners, bunch of terrorists, mate. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, there's been a huge push in the UK recently for them to say, oh, yes, the major threat to the country is far-right terrorism. It's like, okay, but where is it? Like, there's just not happening.
Also, what is far-right terrorism?
Well, yeah.
Come on, define it. Anyway.
Sure.
So let's go for the article itself. So this is the document that was published, and it looks like a joke. Like, it looks like a 4chan prank. So here's the front page. It's not funny anymore. Far-right extremists' use of humor.
Okay, yeah, that does look like a joke.
I also love how it implies that it was funny once. So the guys who wrote this, presumably incredibly into those far-right memes, but now not so interested. So this is published by the Radicalization Awareness Network. So they want to inform you about the radicalization that's taking place online. How are the terrorists doing it? Yeah, but the terrorists, the people who want to kill people, what are they doing? Sharing memes.
How dare they?
If that's it, I'm not too worried, thanks. Anyway, so let's go for the page 4 on here. So some of the quotes from this document are amazing. We don't have time to go into all of it, so I've just taken out some of the bits I find most interesting. So they say, this paper scrutinizes how humor functions as a potential factor in the terms of influencing far-right extremist violence. Right. So this is going to come down to everyone engages in humor, but the far-right do too. Therefore, the humor causes you to be far-right.
Well, I mean, that's not true. The left never engage in humor.
No, that's true. You got me there. And they actually agree with that later on. It's quite funny. So, humor in the context of preventing and countering violent extremism has largely been discussed as a means to combat extremist ideologies. I love how that words, like their department is making counter memes, where they're sitting up all day being like, no, I'm going to debunk this far-right meme by making a meme in response.
Well, maybe they are. I mean...
So we know who's responsible for all those blocks of text that we keep getting sent. So various counter-narrative campaigns have deployed humor to question the authority of extremist groups and ridicule their ambitions. So
what authority?
Also, what counter-narrative campaign? Are you actually admitting that you stay up all night making blocks of text memes? Is that really what your department does?
I guess they do.
Jesus Christ, you need some budget cuts. Even though it is difficult to measure the effectiveness of such campaigns...
That's just a way of saying these campaigns weren't effective.
But, still gotta fund them. Research has shown that such endeavors are appropriate to spin democratic alternatives for effective youths. So even though we can't measure it working, it's still appropriate to be funded.
We still feel that we need to be making up our own memes and narratives because people are saying things online that we don't like.
I don't get how they could word this seriously and then look at it and be like, yeah, I'm going to submit that. So they say later on, yet much less attention has been paid to how humor is utilized by extremist groups and subcultures as a means of recruitment. Okay, one thing before we go further. If an extremist group is reduced to their recruitment strategy being, let's make some jokes, they really are at the bottom of the bottom. I don't know what they're doing with their lives that they're at the point of just being like, well, we'll just joke about our ideology and that'll get people in. That's our strategy.
I mean,
we'll make fun of ourselves.
Joke's on you, EU.
I was retarded the whole time. God, anyway. So especially in light of the digitally mediated wave of far-right terrorism that has struck Christchurch, El Paso, and Halle, I don't know how you say it, amongst others. So this is the example which is, you could say, is the charitable interpretation of why they've done this. So you've got in Christchurch, for example, the guy played meme songs during his live stream in his attack. I assume in El Paso, similar sentiment, and with the one in Germany, that he posted a bunch of memes in his manifesto. And that's that. Like, okay, far-right extremists engage in memes. The rest of society also engages in memes.
Yeah.
I don't know why you think understanding far-right memes is going to make you better at combating extremism. I would have thought you'd be dealing with the terrorism side of this,
But
not
I mean,
the meme side.
This like memes are such a ubiquitous part of being on the internet. This is like essentially saying, well, the far right terrorists sent emails. Emails are radicalizing people to the far right. It's like, well, no.
A means of communication did this.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you know the printing press is what's radicalizing the far right?
I mean, that's actually the Catholic Church's opinion of those damn Protestants.
That was the argument at the time, and this is the same argument here. I'm sorry to say, you look ridiculous for making it. So they continue. The perpetrators of these attacks did not have a criminal record and were neither members of extremist organizations nor did they have any links to local scenes. Rather, they emerged from digital subcultures which share, besides their receptiveness to extremist ideas, a cynical style of humor intended to numb and desensitize its consumers to the use of violence. In their manifestos, the terrorists consequently adopted expropriations of meme culture and online milieus. In particular, image-based forums such as 4chan and 8kun.
So what were they doing? Sharing around like Wall Street Journal and New York Times articles saying Black Lives Matter did nothing wrong? Because that would be extremist violence, in my opinion.
This is such a weird argument where it's like the exchange of information exists. This is a medium of it, meme sharing, as opposed to emails or the printing press, so on and so forth. And the far right engages in this, and that's what made them the terrorist, because they weren't a member of the Klan or something. Instead, they were reading stuff online. That made them the terrorist. Therefore, the method by which they read it is the thing of interest.
I suppose that would be where you would go if you were part of the EU.
Yeah. So page 5, trust me, this gets a lot more funny as well, so stick with us, because I wanted to go through some of the arguments they made. So, while it is a truism that extremist movements are only successful if they speak the language of the masses, researchers and practitioners have been repeatedly overwhelmed by the new guises that extremist communication has adopted in the digital era. What do you mean? Like, people have been making memes, and you're like, what are these?
But that's not even true. Like, the radical left does not speak the language of the masses. They, in fact, invented their own, essentially, an entire separate language to describe their concepts. And
no one understands what the hell they're talking about.
And they're not popularly supported at all, and yet they've done very, very well. So, no, that's not true. Extremists can speak in their own language.
They can form a vanguard, perhaps, and take over the elite.
Yes. Has a left-wing extremist ever done that before? I have no idea. I guess we'd have to go open a history book to find out, wouldn't we?
What's that got to do with anything? The playful and ironic rearticulation of white supremacism and ethno-nationalism has largely been understood as an innovative strategy to appeal to broader audiences. I really don't think that that's smart. I like, they're thinking of the white nationalists are sitting down and being like, right, let's what if we do memes instead?
Yeah, but you know why they're thinking that, right? It's because that's exactly what the left did with critical race theory.
They sit back and have a million theories about how to do it first. It's like, that's not how that works, obviously. No. They just are throwing stuff at the wall, and they think that works. Like, they found a medium of communication, and they're using it, such as printing books, for example. It's another medium of communication they use. So a strange mixture of infantile mischief. This doesn't make them look like a threat. Communication ambivalence, and a strong dose of nihilism that promote extremist ideas. That's them describing the memes as what they are. Mischief.
I think you should judge a man by the quality of his enemies. If your enemies are posting infantile memes on the internet, maybe that says something about you.
Also, I love the idea that they point out that, like, the far right, what's interesting about their memes? It contains mischief, which de facto means that the far left don't engage in mischief.
No, they're reinforcing the current power structures.
Nice for them to admit it. They also have a section on terminology, which is the bit that I'm very interested in. So they define far right. Far right extremism encompasses a range of different ideologies, which may include elements of cultural, ethnic, and or racial nationalism. Cultural nationalism is far right.
Oh, hang on. Ethnic nationalism, in the way they're using it, means that the demand for a Kurdish state would be far-right terrorism.
IRA, far right.
Palestinians.
Far right.
Wow.
But also the cultural part, the Lib Dems, far right.
I'm actually really impressed at how inclusive the far-right is. I didn't realise it would be so international, diverse, left-leaning.
The Swiss Constitution, far right.
Just Israel, far-right.
Poland, far right.
God, there's a lot of countries with what I thought were many diverse interests.
So in case you're worrying and being like, well, no, come on, they're only going to deal with the white nationalist propaganda online as if that's an appropriate thing for the government to do either. No, anyone they just feel like, apparently, because the definition of far right encompasses the entire Western canon of politics.
I'm reasonably sure that it is actually... No, anyway, I'll check that before I carry on.
So they have a quote here. They put in a quote: "The most potent weapons known to mankind are satire and ridicule."
So, Alinsky.
Yeah, they're quoting Alinsky here. I love the way they do it, because again, it's kind of a dunk on themselves. Civil rights activist Saul Alinsky wrote back in 1971. In his renowned book, Rules for Radicals, this advice has been key to winning the hearts and minds of people, especially by progressive movements.
Alinsky being the small c communist that he was.
As, quote, "through humour, much is accepted that would otherwise be rejected if presented seriously." So,
no.
Progressive movements have made great strides through presenting people dishonestly their ideas. Like, if we presented people with progressive ideas just up front, no one believed them, but we put them in humour, and now people believe them.
So what? But they're also complaining that the far right are copying their methods, and that's not allowed because they're our methods.
Progressives. They don't say the far left. They're not trying to say, the Stalinists or something. No, they're saying the progressives are the mirror image of what they're calling the far right.
Okay.
I have no idea who the centrists are in these people's universe.
I mean, I agree with them, though.
So let's go to page 6. So they say, recent generations of far-right extremists have chosen the transgressive humour and supposed, in blocks there, satire, as central weapons in the fight against liberal democracy and its political correctness, which is depicted as prudish and patronising.
Oh, no, political correctness is totally cool, my man.
Nah, political correctness is very subversive.
Yeah.
That's why it's political correctness. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you got these goddamn morons. Praising a politically correct attitude, humour has been weaponized as a form of resistance against a political culture that is supposedly curtailing free speech.
Oh, supposedly.
Supposedly.
Oh, well, I mean, if it's not really doing that, then that's fine.
Like, we need to censor people who are anyone who's a Westerner, pretty much, on the basis that they're far right now. But also, there's no supposed curtailing of free speech going on, folks.
But also, we are coming for your memes. Don't know whether that's a big deal to you.
Why do they think political correctness isn't cool? God, the EU is so out of touch. Clear-cut distinctions between the digital and analog, as well as mischief and bigotry, are increasingly difficult to make. I wonder why that is. It's almost as if certain people, progressives, have been redefining terms like racism, sexism, and all the rest of it, so that we have no idea what any of these goddamn subjects mean.
Violence can be done via the internet now, according to progressives.
Speech is silence. But also, silence is violence.
Yes. So everyone's in trouble. You can't win.
I love that, though. They're trying to blame the white nationalists for this. They're all the white nationalists' faults. This is not one of theirs. Like, the problem being able that we don't know what bigotry is or jokes anymore is because of the left's encompass of anything jokes is also some kind of violence.
Mad.
Which is what they're doing in this article, which is kind of ironic. So, digital culture is based on the core belief that ways of interaction online differ fundamentally from the offline world.
Well, we know that they do.
Yeah. But this is also their cope.
Like, no one would talk to you on Twitter in real life as the same as they do on Twitter. No one would do it.
Of course. But this paragraph here is actually them coping. So they know that what they've written here is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So they're like, right, but what if we do a Kafka trap, and anyone who ridicules us is also far right?
Ooh.
So they write here, the internet is serious business, in quotes, has become an ironic meme, the meaning of which is actually the exact opposite, which is to say that the internet is not serious business at all. And anyone who thinks otherwise should be corrected and ridiculed. Like, maybe you could take that statement seriously if you're an absolute moron, but let's go to page 7 and let me dispel you of any such delusions, because what are the memes they're talking about? Wojak, Doge, and Pepe. The symbols of the far right.
I noticed that Pepe meme is I only ever see it in these sorts of reports. Yeah, I assume that some Nazis put it on 4chan once.
So for people listening, they've got an image of a Wojak meme, which is just normal. Then they've got Doge with sunglasses. Sunglasses not presumably a symbol of white nationalism. And then the Pepe is in an SS uniform, but you rarely see Pepe like that. outside of these reports.
Yeah, I never see Pepe like that. Like, normally it's just not even political. Normally the Pepe memes I see going around are like for everyday sort of events, like
I'm sad.
Yeah, I'm sad. Or like
Playing with trains.
Yeah, just stupid stuff. Anyway.
So they define the memes in here. The original iteration of the Wojak meme expressed through emotions such as melancholy, regret, or loneliness. It has gradually been adopted and advanced by far-right meme culture to portray liberals with blank expressions.
Oh yeah. Only a white nationalist would think that the progressives are a bunch of NPCs that get programmed by Twitter.
But also that the Wojak presents liberals. No, of course it doesn't. Like, the Wojak can present everyone. That's kind of the point.
And that's...
The aim here is to show that normies do not question the information that comes to them from mainstream press and politics.
Well, that's true.
You're proving it right now. You're the normie who is so stupid that they think that these memes, by definition, are something to do with white nationalism. Second, the Doge meme. Prove my point fast enough, couldn't you? Is one of the most infamous internet memes, which has been adapted into various ways to tease a kind of outdated humor and style of individuals and politicians. In far-right circles, it has often become combined with Nazi memorabilia to trivialize the violence by the SS and Wehrmacht. It's like,
oh, I think I've got it. These memes are just normal memes, but whenever you put them in far-right circles, they're combined with Nazi memorabilia. It's almost like everything they do is combined with Nazi memorabilia, so it's almost like it's not like the things they're co-opting, it's the far-right themselves.
maybe it's the Nazi memorabilia that reminds people of the far-right, and not the fucking Doge. Morons.
Sorry, carry on.
Oh, God. I'll just read the Pepe one real quick. Pepe the Frog meme has been appropriated by far-right online activists. No, it hasn't. It's been ostracized by the far left and then pushed into the hands of the far right. No one thought Pepe was far right. No one still does, to be honest.
Appropriate a meme.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's like... So someone made a meme with their particular sort of varnish on it, the glaze that they want on it. For the Nazis, it's Nazism, unsurprisingly. But you don't sit there and go, yeah, but the far left have done it with communism. You can find lots of Lenin memes of all of these types, or Marx memes of all of these types.
Just no one shares them.
No one shares them and no one cares. But they don't care either. So it's mad.
Interesting. We'll mention about the communists who happen to be mentioned in this as well. So they say that Pepe symbolizes a kind of superior nonchalance towards others, helping to normalize hostile attitudes towards minorities and political opponents.
Seems a bit uncharitable towards Pepe.
Have they only ever seen that one Pepe?
Well, that's what I think it is, yeah.
They've never seen Pepe crying or being upset or just doing anything else with his life. They've only ever seen the Nazi meme because I guess these people live on the Daily Stormer. He's also a kind of anti-elite arrogance and condescension. This face here?
I guess, if that's what you're reading into it.
It has become the icon of the alt-right. Good God. So let's go to page 8, because I mentioned about the communists. So, sociologist, Indian name, refers to this phenomenon as, quote, digital hate cultures. And you might like, who the hell is this sociologist they're mentioning? So, we'll get to him in a minute. They say Facebook has...
Bharath Ganesh.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Facebook has disbanded one of its... So let's go to the link here, which is his Twitter account, and he retweeted this most recent tweet, which is Joe Mule, the communist. You know, the guy in charge of research of the communist organization Hope Not Hate.
Yep.
And he's an open member of the Communist Party of Great Britain.
Yep.
That's who you want advising you on extremism, isn't it? Communist Party members.
No wonder we're talking so much about Nazis on the internet.
Yeah.
Most people don't care about Nazis on the internet because there aren't actually very many Nazis anywhere. And you go on almost any public forum anywhere on the internet and you won't find any Nazis. And you really have to look quite hard to find Nazis on the internet. But Joe, a communist, is obsessed with Nazis and so spends his time hunting them down online.
If you weren't already laughing at the fact that we're talking about memes as the symbol of the far right and weren't convinced this is already nonsense, and then you're not convinced by the fact that the guys they're quoting openly retweet members of the Communist Party who are going to lecture you on what extremism is, let's go for his example of what's happening in the extremist world. So there's that image there, if we can get the image up. So the story Joe's tweeting. Facebook has disbanded one of its teams after the data they produced suggested that far-right commentators outperformed all other users. Oh my God, how can Facebook join the far-right? Oh my God, people pointed out that there's far-right commentators on Facebook, and Facebook shut it down.
Nick Clegg, Mark Zuckerberg, famous far-rightist.
Man, they must be Nazis. So who are the far-right commentators? The most engagement was to content by right-wing channels such as Ben Shapiro and Fox News host Sean Hannity.
Oh, Ben Shapiro, famous favourite of the alt-right.
This moron, this Communist Party member who wants to lecture you on extremism, is telling you that Ben Shapiro is the leader of the Nazis. And then the guy being quoted in this report is like, yeah, that's the case. Get that a retweet.
I remember very clearly when Ben Shapiro was being bullied by the Nazis, and he wasn't very happy about it, as you can imagine. You can imagine the anti-Semitic jokes that they sent to Ben Shapiro, can't you? Can't you? Never mind. He's now in charge of the Nazi Party.
Hell of a step up. Anyway, let's go to the last bit on here, so the page 13. There's the recommendations they have for the EU. So what's the EU going to do? Thank God for Brexit is what you get to say after this. What are they going to do about these memes? Quarantine extremist humour, and therefore extremist ideas. The first priority is to not amplify messages that might harm broader communities or even indirectly benefit a far-right campaign. Memes. We are talking about Doge memes. They want to quarantine Doge.
But they want to quarantine ideas. That's amazing.
They also
I totally trust people who, I don't know, want some kind of book burning. Was there anyone in Europe, maybe around like 1930s, 1940s, who was burning books?
The EU is Germany by other means.
Yes.
There's also the next bit here, so the next section of recommendations, in which they say, keep this in mind whenever a new content creator turns up on the left, build up effective partnerships with social media influencers and progressive communities, which have a strong influence on the views of their followers and supporters.
Just openly partisan. Well, the far right, like, Ben Shapiro, they're bad. So what we need to do is build effective partnerships with progressive communities.
The EU. This is totally not an elitist organisation that is underrepresented because they're not
elitist left-wing organisation.
We need to team up with progressives to combat the far right. Who are the far right? Cultural nationalists.
Sean Hannity.
The Swiss Constitution is a symbol of the far right. Good God.
Republicans in America are the far right.
And in case you're wondering if this is just all a complete S show, apparently the big tech Silicon Valley types are going to just go along with this because
of course they are.
So there's This Coast TV breaking the story that Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft, YouTube, and other big tech companies will now add content to shared counterterrorism key databases, such as the Radicalization Awareness Group, who are supposedly countering terrorism by looking at Doge memes all day, aiming to crack down on material from white supremacists and far-right militias.
This is because that picture of Ben Shapiro as a teenager with a sword resurfaced recently, isn't it?
They all lost their minds.
Oh my God, he's formed a far-right militia.
While you guys were all talking about progressive politics, I was studying the blade.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.